Welcome to the Buddhistisches Tor Berlin podcast. Join us for live recordings from classes, insightful talks, and guided meditations.
First of all, I just want to say I'm quite pleased to be back here. I've been away for a while, so it's good to be back in Berlin. I've been on a 3-month retreat, so I was 3 months in the mountains, meditating and studying and doing all sorts of Buddhist-y things, things you do when you're a Buddhist. So what this was, I was there. Well, the closest thing you can imagine it being is a sort of monastery. Yeah. So basically, we've been living in a kind of monastery setting. We were all wearing robes. We were meditating every day. We were studying all these kind of things. Yeah, all these kind of things you would imagine in a monastery. We weren't that. I mean, we still had all our possessions with us. We weren't like, I don't know, begging monks or anything like that. So not like proper monks, but close to being in a monastery as you can get probably. And just to give you a brief context, it was a kind of when people join our order, join the Tratna Buddhist order. So all of us who are this case, there's this option to go on this 3-month retreat. So you can get ordained during that 3-month retreat. So all the guys that I was there with, they have been, they were engaged with Buddhism for a while. They have been Buddhists for quite a long time, and they decided to take that step, to join the order. So, and I was helping the team to make sure that the retreat is running well, But just to give you a little bit of a glimpse of how it was like, it's an extremely simple life. It's extreme. I've been watching the same rock and the same tree for 3 months, This is all the input I had, the same type of rocks, the same sort of trees. It was a great event when there was a snake. There was news for weeks. The guys living there. There's a community who lives there permanently. They're all a bit over these, city boys coming there and being amazed at nature. They're like, oh God, a snake. Like, we get that every year. One day, one of us. There was always a period where we had absolutely doing nothing. We were asked to do absolutely nothing, just sit in a chair and just do nothing. And all of a sudden, one of our brothers stood up, took a Tupperware, box of Tupperware, put some stones in there, and then went to we had to wash our clothes in a kind of rainwater basin. So there was no washing machines. Took some water out of that rainwater basin and then washed the stone. And we all thought, so you could see a sort of common confusion going on with everyone, like, why is he washing the stone? And it transpired to us that he was making a bird bath. So he put water into that Tupperware with the stone because he was very bored, because nothing was happening. He had to do nothing. And then we all sat around there waiting for birds to arrive. And one did after 3 weeks or something of having that bird bath. There was news for a whole month. We were excited about that one bird coming. A complete and utter awe of this bird coming. Oh my God, something else is happening. Great. Something to talk about. Have you seen that bird who comes to the bird bath? That was our conversations at the dinner table. This is the sort of stuff that you get up to up there in the mountains. Now, unfortunately, we had to take the bird bath away because the community were like, no, mosquitoes will, lay their eggs in there. We'll get loads of mosquito infections. So we got rid of the bird bath. The poor little bird came again and again, looking really confused where the water is gone. So it was very sad. Anyway, that was the life in the mountain. Coming back from that was really weird. There's this funny story. If you're 3 months in that environment, you're just a bit like, you think one bird is amazing. These rocks are amazing. And then you come back into, especially Kreuzberg, is weird to come back to. I'm sorry, but I was in Dublin because my partner's Irish. He lives in Dublin. I was in Dublin first. And it was like, city, it's a bit weird, and you're a bit like, oh my God, people, and you're a bit sensitive and vulnerable and all that. But then you come to Kreuzberg, it's completely another level of weirdness, and you just sort of see everyone just sort of putting on this show all the time. Everyone's like really curated, and anyway, it's quite a strong insight. Anyway, a friend of mine and I, on the second day when I came back, we went to this to a coffee shop, to a cafe, and she asked me if I wanted oat milk or cow's milk in my coffee. And I just went, what? I just did not have that choice. This question seemed so bizarre to me because all I needed to do was take the soy milk that was there in Griecholocke and just pour it into my coffee. And it was just one type of coffee for 3 months. So it was very fun. And then I said, I'm sorry, I've been on a mountain for 3 months. And she just burst into laughter and sort of collapsed into herself because she thought I had I would say, oh, sorry, I had a very stressful day. But I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm too relaxed for this. That's basically my message. Don't know why I'm telling you this, but okay, let's move on to my talk. So what struck me on this 3-month course, on this 3-month retreat was, I was watching 19 guys getting ordained, sort of choosing Buddhism, basically. Yeah. So what they did was they chose to commit their lives to Buddhism. Yeah. So and they've been in our particular tradition, in our particular community, and so the question, again and again that arose was, why are you a Buddhist? Why would you want to do that? What makes you a Buddhist? How do you end up taking that step of getting ordained? And I was reminded of my own journey with all that. So I just kept asking myself that question. Okay, so the more you learn about Buddhism, the more you sort of get into something. Sometimes the more you can sort of lose sight of what's actually going on. Yeah, you can lose sight of what's actually, what is it that makes you a Buddhist? What is that central act of what makes one a Buddhist? Yeah. So I just thought I'd give an extremely basic talk today. About Buddhism and what it means to be a Buddhist. Because I asked myself that question there again and again, seeing those sort of guys trying to commit themselves to, well, not just trying, successfully committing themselves to the Buddhist path. So it just made me reflect myself. Yeah, why am I a Buddhist? What makes me a Buddhist? How do people end up committing themselves to Buddhism? What happens when we turn to Buddhism? Yeah, so I hope that'll be of interest. So while I was writing this talk, I realized that basic doesn't necessarily mean easy. Basic just means fundamental, yeah, in this case. So basic. So I hope I try to make the talk quite sort of slick and nice and easy, but it is not as easy as it looks, to become a Buddhist. It's actually quite a intricate matter, yeah, to look into what makes people a Buddhist. So basic here means completely fundamental, completely core to Buddhism, etc., etc. Yeah. So if you indulge me, I'll take you on that journey of what it takes to become a Buddhist. Basically, what I'm going to do for this talk is I'm going to take the traditional formulation. So traditionally, when people become Buddhists, when it goes all the way back to the time of the Buddha. What happens is, people get inspired. People hear, a saying of the Buddha. They hear a teaching, and then they say, "Amazing, wonderful. I go for refuge to the Buddha. I go for refuge to the Dharma, I go for refuge to the Sangha." So the Buddha is quite clear, that's him. He's a historical person who gained enlightenment and taught that. The Dharma is the teaching. You go for refuge to the teaching, and you go for refuge to the community. That is the Sangha, that is the third thing I said. And I will go through that. So traditionally, it is going for refuge to what we call the 3 jewels. Yeah, so the 3 jewels are the Buddha, his teaching, and the community. So we say to the 3 jewels for refuge I go. So what I'll do is, I'll first talk about what this whole language of refuge means. Why are we saying refuge? What is that? Why? From what to where? What does refuge mean in this context? Then I'll talk a little bit about the I go part, because I think that's quite important. Why are we saying I go? And then I go into a little bit more detail about the three jewels themselves. Yeah, so it's a bit of a structure for you there. And then let's see what we can make of that. I was reading a talk in preparation for this from our teacher, Sangharakshita. It's actually a little booklet now. It's called The Meaning of Conversion in Buddhism. So he's basically talking about what I'm talking about now, or I'm talking about what he was talking about. Basically, I'm going to quote him a lot, so do look up that talk, The Meaning of Conversion in Buddhism. And he says conversion, already in that word, you have that language of turning, don't you? Something is turning. So there's a sort of double movement. You turn away from something, and towards something. He says, when you convert to anything, whether it be Buddhism or whatever it might be, something very, very essential changes in you. Yes, something very, very deep changes. There's a change of heart. Yeah, there's a change at the very core of your being. That takes place. And he says, so he's not even talking about Buddhism here. He says a change of heart takes place, which leads you to stop running after the transitory things of this world and direct your attention and energy to the sublime, everlasting things of the spirit. So this is when you sort of commit to religious life. Yeah, this is what happens. Could be Buddhism, could be Christianity, could be anything. Yeah, this is the sort of natural process of what's happening. Some sort of change of heart is there. There's a sort of turning away from something towards something, and in this case, you turn away from running after the transitory things of this world, and directing our attention and energy to the sublime, everlasting things of the spirit. So basically, this is just a different way of saying, to the three jewels for refuge I go. Yeah. So I'm just giving you a little bit of a synonym here. What that means. Okay, well, let's look into that traditional formulation. So people since the beginning of Buddhism have said, to the three jewels for refuge I go. So let's look into refuge. So why refuge? What does refuge mean in this context? Well, usually, I don't know. Maybe I throw it to you. What's a refuge? What does refuge mean? Safe place, yeah.
Can I give a banal answer?
Yeah, that's all I want.
If you look up refuge in an English dictionary, it says traffic island.
All right. Yeah.
Which is a safe place.
Yeah.
Really like that.
Yeah. You can hide there, yeah. Yeah?
The place where you have no distractions.
Ah, yeah, interesting. Yeah. Comfort, yeah, something where you see comfort in.
Like from a political perspective, you could say a place where something you were running from is not.
Yeah, interesting, yeah. You're running away from something, seeking something, yeah.
From danger to safety.
Danger to safety. That's a refuge, isn't it? Yeah. Do you have places like that you can relate to? Like, where do you run to for safety?
Berlin.
Berlin?
I'm sorry, from Kiev. I'm from Ukraine.
Oh, well, yeah, of course, yeah. Well, that's quite poignant, isn't it? It's very poignant. Yeah.
You have women's refuges, don't you?
Women's refuges, yeah. So we've got that symbolism going on. Yeah, some sort of it's a shelter. It's a place of refuge. It's a hiding place, a secure place, protection from danger. Now, the Buddha says about refuges. He's basically saying that we are seeking refuges all the time. Yeah, we're looking all the time for refuges, and he means that literally as well as metaphorically, obviously. Yeah, so metaphorically meaning emotionally, we're looking for safety, security, all the time. Right now, you're doing that. I'm doing that. We don't want danger. We don't want distraction. We want safety, comfort. Someone was saying comfort. Even comfort is a nice one, isn't it? It feels safe, feels lovely, feels very comfortable. So the Buddhist vision is that it's a very natural and normal tendency to seek refuge, to seek something which is safe, which doesn't harm us in any sort of way, which makes us feel comfortable. This is sort of the Buddhist vision. The Buddha says, and he talks in a very Indian sort of language there. He says that most of us, even all of us, we run to all sorts of things for refuge. He was saying the people were running to like wayside shrines, to holy trees for refuge. They were praying to the local deities and gods for refuge, trying to gain safety, security out of all that. So he's saying this is happening all the time. We're doing that all the time, and well, you can ask yourself, what are you going for refuge to at this moment, for example? I tend to go for refuge to, I don't know, I'd say things like food, sex, and drink. Things that quite alluring, quite sort of deceiving refuges, aren't they? They're quite, look good. Once you're there, I guess, once you're over it, once you're on the other side. Anyway, we try to have them again. We go for refuge. Ambition, career is a strong one. Ambition, we want to be someone. We want to, when we enter a room, we want people to be like, "Oh, he's entered the room. Interesting." This is sort of what we want, isn't it? We want to be like, okay, the world is sort of being like, "Oh, such and such has entered the room." So there's all these things. There's cravings. There's hatreds. But there's even things like refined pleasures that we go for refuge to. You can see it here all the time. We sort of, as I said, coming back here is quite a strong sort of like, it's a bit of a shock when you've been in nature for a long time. There's all these islands here of refined hedonism. So refined, we're just trying to take craving and pleasure and just take it a bit nicer, make it even nicer, like a nice wine bar, like a nice coffee shop. The flat white needs to be, and that roast rather than that roast of coffee beans and stuff. And we only had instant coffee there, and it's fine for 3 months. It's really fine. It's not a problem. We will survive. And do you see what I mean? We try to sort of build up a kind of, at least that's the Buddhist vision. That's the Buddhist vision. We're trying to constantly build up this kind of, being, this kind of identity around something, and we go for refuge to all these different things. It can be positive things, it can be negative things. We're trying to, instead of sort of relying on, just existing really, instead of relying on just ourselves, as it were, we keep, looking at things outside of ourselves, things that look amazing, that look like, okay, if I just have that, if I just can get that job, that apartment, that that reputation, everything, I'll be safe, I'll be fine. I won't, maybe even more than safe, I'll be amazing. I'll be an even better person. So do you see what I mean? It's this constant kind of pushing and pulling of emotions which is going on. There's constant trying to twiddle around with experience, with reality, trying to make experience just a little bit better, just a little bit better than what we have. So the Buddha is saying, well, from a sort of absolute point of view, these refuges are all not real refuges. They might be a refuge for a while. They might be a refuge for, that sex feels good, initially. But afterwards you think, okay, maybe it wasn't the complete fulfillment that I was waiting for. I don't know, I mean, maybe I'm just revealing something about myself here, but you can find your own examples. But because they're imperfect in themselves, we are sort of imperfect beings, and we're trying to go for refuge to imperfect things. It's not going to work. It's not going to help us. It sometimes helps in the short run. It helps for a little bit, but sort of for the everlasting happiness that we expect from it, it won't give us that. It won't give us that. So they're not real refuges in that sense. They're imperfect in themselves. they're impermanent, transient. So they might alleviate suffering temporarily, but not in the long run. Some of them might even inflict more suffering on us. We think they will alleviate us from suffering, but actually they just increase our suffering. So refuge is always something where we think our suffering will decrease from. So we go for refuge to something because we think our suffering will decrease. And some of them might do that for a while, but some of them might actually increase suffering. Certain, relationships can do that. You think you're going to be happy with that person. Actually, you're much, much worse off, really, with that person. It can be like that. Not all relationships are like that, obviously. So just make sure who you choose, if you can do that. Obviously, we can't. So we need to find a refuge that is real, the Buddha is saying, He says there is such a thing as a real refuge. There's something that, our sort of intuition is right, Our intuition to move away from suffering is right. There's an intuition that we have to move away from suffering, to move away from unpleasant experience. That intuition is correct, but where we look is wrong, So he's saying there is a real refuge. And there is a refuge from suffering. And you'll be very surprised, but it's Buddhism. So he's basically saying, so I'm just going to read out, just to get a bit of Buddhist scripture in here, to educate ourselves about the words of the Buddha. So this is from a very, very old text, going back, probably to the time very close to the Buddha himself. So this is the Buddha speaking. This is probably something that he said. Obviously, tradition always waters down the words a bit, and we can't quite be sure whether that's exactly what he said, but it's pretty close. So this is a short story, very, very short. I'm just going to read the whole thing. So these things always start with, "Thus have I heard," because it was an oral tradition, and the teachings were passed down. So at one time, the Gracious One, that's the Buddha, was dwelling near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove at Anathapindika's monastery. That's somewhere in northern India. Then at that time, the Buddha was instructing, rousing, enthusing, and cheering the monks with a Dhamma talk connected with enlightenment. Those monks, after making it their goal, applying their minds, considering it with all their mind, were listening to Dhamma, to his teaching, with an attentive ear. Then the Gracious One, having understood the significance of it, on that occasion uttered this exalted utterance. There is, monks, an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned. If, monks, there were not that unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned, you could not know and escape here from the born, become, made, and conditioned. But because there's an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned, therefore you do know and escape from the born, become, made, and conditioned. So he's saying there are two sides of reality here. There is something which is born like us. We come into this world, everything comes into this world, but because it is born, it also must cease. It also must go out of this world. And that's why nothing that is born, and because it needs to die, because of that, it's not a safe refuge. This is why we need to sort of learn how to not rely on it so much. If we could learn not to rely on all these impermanences of the world, we would be able to enjoy them much more. This is what Buddhism is trying to do. So he's saying, but there is something out there which is not like that. Which is not conditioned, which isn't impermanent, which isn't ever changing, which is actually reliable. And that is enlightenment. That is sort of the goal of the path, is to realize what that is and to be able to rely on that much more. And that is what the biggest goal and the ideal of Buddhism is. So it's things like the three jewels, it's enlightenment, etc. So that sounds all a bit technical, but all you need to sort of remember here is that there are sort of two modes of seeing the world. One where you actually see that everything's impermanent, and because you see that things are impermanent, you slowly can stop relying on it so much, and you can just sort of rejoice and enjoy them, and you can see the beauty which is actually behind all these things. And because of that, you then move to a sphere where because you see everything, coming into being, going out of being, you see just the whole show in front of your face, in front of your very eyes. You experience the whole show of life, as it were. You reach a state of everlasting bliss. That is what he talks about. That is that state of, that is not conditioned, that is unborn, that is not, you reach this sort of state of complete and utter bliss, enlightenment, whatever that is. The problem with enlightenment is we can't really talk about it in words because it completely goes beyond our current way of talking about it. So he's saying, okay, so we look for all these refuges which aren't real, but there is something which is beyond the world. There is such a thing, whatever that might be. Yeah, whatever that will look like when we get there, who knows? It will look something like happiness, but much more than that. Yeah, it will look something like complete and utter joy, but much, much more than that. Yeah, much more. We won't be there to experience it because we have transcended ourselves. Anyway, I'm starting to it's really difficult to talk about it because I actually don't know what it is either. Okay, so that's why we talk about to go for refuge to the three jewels. Yeah, because there's something, because we're in that process anyway. So if we could just, have something in our life which was much more reliable, we'd be much happier. Yeah, but we keep choosing refuges which aren't reliable. Yeah, this is why we are using this language, and the language is quite a strong language, isn't it? Refuge. So let's move to the I go part. So the traditional formulation is, to the three jewels for refuge, I go. It's not you accept the refuges, you go towards them. Yeah, so this is the language. It's quite significant. So you're not sort of, by becoming a Buddhist, one doesn't sort of accept the refuges. You say, okay, no, I do want to move towards them. Yeah, I'm not there yet. Yeah, we're not there yet. We want to develop towards that. It's interesting. So what that says is that what's required is a personal commitment. Yeah. So you could say that Buddhism is sort of the religion of personal responsibility. It's all about the individual developing. Yeah. So what's required is a personal responsibility for our own lives. It's an act that we do ourselves voluntarily, not someone else. No one else can do it for us. We need to choose that if we want to. We can't be forced into it. That would be a contradiction in terms. No one can be made a Buddhist. It's only individuals who can choose to become Buddhists. Yeah, it's only we ourselves can put that ideal onto us, so to say. Yeah, only we can choose to move towards that. So that's I think what's trying to be signified here with the I go bit. So what needs to happen is, we need to sort of awaken a sense of agency for our own lives. We need to say, okay, I might have been, trying this and that, and I've been kind of swayed around by my life, and my life is sort of taking agency of myself. But actually, let me reverse that. Let me actually now become the main agent of my life. Let me become behind the steering wheel again of my life. So let me integrate myself. So that's important. So I think that's again signified by the I go bit here. So it's realizing that in the end of the day, our life is in our own hands. Realizing that we can actually change. Yeah, change is possible. It's the whole point of Buddhism in a way, is saying, okay, there's all these lofty ideals, the three jewels and enlightenment and all that. But what that means is that we are beings who can develop, who have the potential to actually develop and move and grow towards that. That's what it means. It's saying that, all of us have that potential within us to grow, to change. If everything's changing anyway, if everything's impermanent anyway, well, great, we are impermanent. We can then, change as well. We don't have to stay like that. We don't have to stay the way we are. We can become more. We can become more integrated, more of an agent of our own life. And then the go bit, I go is, well, there is a path that I can walk. Yeah, there is a path, a direction to go along. And I think that's particularly important because, sometimes we wonder, okay, so what does Buddhism say about, I don't know, politics or world problems or this and that? At the very heart of it, Buddhism is concerned with the individual, with the development of the individual human being. Yeah, so Buddhism said, or the Buddha said, I know how beings can develop. Everything else, I'm not going to say anything about that. Yeah, I'm going to help you develop. I'm going to. Here are tools which you can use if you want to develop yourself, if you want to grow towards enlightenment. If you want to take up these tools, lovely. Here's the Dharma. Here's the teaching. The Dharma is everything that helps you grow. Everything else, there's other smart people who have thought about all sorts of things. There's not much to be said within Buddhism, so I'm sorry if you had a question about world problems or something. But because do you see how? Because I think that is quite a fundamental thing. Because if we want to change, or if you want to change people, the only one who can change them is yourself. Yeah, so you can only change yourself. You can't go around changing other people. So this is why the I go bit is so important in that traditional formulation, because at the end of the day, we can only change ourselves. We can only change our own minds, and then hopefully we inspire others to do the same. And then the Buddha says, okay, well, here's the teachings if you want to do that. Yeah, if you want to do that, I've got a whole bunch of teachings for you to go along and develop. So it's development towards enlightenment. So that's I go. We're going now. So we know that we are going for refuge. We're going that path ourselves. Oh yeah, maybe just to say, well, how to develop. I mean, just in short, the teachings are, we've done it in the first half, for example. Meditation is a big part of that. We work with our mind, on our mind. Yeah, we refine our behavior. We try to refine our speech, refine our thought through that, and we reflect on the views we hold ourselves and that we hold about the world. We try to see impermanence and other marks of existence more and more thoroughly, and this is how we walk that path. Yeah, this is the so-called threefold path. I'm not going to go into that today. Of meditation, refining our behavior, our speech, and reflecting on reality. Yeah, this is how we can develop. Alrighty, let's move on. So we've heard about refuges. We've heard about that we are going that path. We've heard that we need to find a refuge which is real, which is reliable. So the Buddha says, okay, so the refuges, there's actually 3 of them. The 3 jewels, we call them, because they're so precious to us. And they are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So this is what we can go for refuge to. The Buddha is, I'm going to go through them in a minute. So these are the things. If we take them as our refuge, if we take them at the heart of our lives, we will develop. Even though it's not always an easy path. It's actually Sangharakshita in one of his poems says it's actually a hacked path through a jungle. I can't remember the words, but it can be a tricky path. But if you rely on these 3 things, success is ensured. Yeah, and that's what I'm holding on to as well. That hope. That's what we all hope that is actually true. Otherwise, we'd be making a right fool of ourselves. Anyway, let's go into it. So what does it mean to go for refuge to the Buddha then? I'm just going to go through these 3 individually. So the Buddha is the enlightened one. Yeah, it's the one who got enlightened sort of first, as it were. He didn't have a teacher. He got enlightened out of his own efforts. And obviously afterwards there's been other enlightened beings as well, but they all had his help, so to say. Yeah, they all had the help of other enlightened beings or other teachers. So that's why we honor him so much, because he's found a way to gain enlightenment, found those refuges, as it were. So how to go for refuge to the Buddha is we acknowledge that there is higher development possible. So it's the first step, as if you want to lead a religious life. You need to first open yourself to that possibility that there's more to this life than just what we see. There's more than who we are at the moment. There is higher development possible. We trust that there are things like that there are higher states of being. And we take the Buddha as a living embodiment of the highest conceivable spiritual ideal. Yeah, for us, we do not only go for refuge to him as a person or as a human being. We actually go for him. That's a complicated grammar. We go for refuge to him as an embodiment of what we can become. Yeah. So for us, the Buddha represents everything that we aspire to. We could be sitting like that with a bump on our head and long earlobes. No, I mean, anyway, metaphorically speaking. It's all metaphor here. It's all poetry. But you see what I mean? It's like we're trying to come into a relationship with a higher ideal, which we can actually fulfill, where that potential is within us, is innate within every one of us. So we try to, that's why we have Buddha statues, because we try to have a sort of object of devotion. And it all starts with just trying to open up to a sense of like, is there more to life than just what I'm doing right now? Is there more to life than this? Is that all? Is that all that life's got to offer? The Buddha is saying, no, there's actually more. And that is how going for refuge to the Buddha looks like, is to keep asking ourselves, is there more? Could I be more developed? Could I do more for my own development? Could I actually move towards enlightenment more? So then the Dharma is his teaching. That's the second jewel. Going for refuge to the Dharma means, the Dharma, first of all, is the teaching of the Buddha, but also is another word for kind of ultimate reality. So those two are linked because enlightenment is a complete insight into reality itself. So it's the experience of seeing things as they really are. And then the Buddha tried to communicate from that point of view. So this is why those two things are linked. Yeah, he tried to communicate from a deep experience, which actually goes beyond words. Yeah, so for us, we do not necessarily go for refuge to the, to the texts themselves or to the letter of it or to the precise formulations. We go for refuge to that experience which has communicated them, which is trying to communicate something to us. So basically what that means is that we actually practice, yeah? So go for refuge to the Dharma just means actually sitting down, meditating, actually, looking at our mental states, thinking, could I be nicer? Could this be somehow kinder and more content? And this is what going for refuge means, coming back and back again to actual practice, actual meditation, actual refining of our behavior, of how we are with people, etc., etc. I think I'll just move on to the third jewel as well, the Sangha, the community. Traditionally, that just means going for refuge to those who've gone the path before us, yeah, who can be examples on the path to us. But it also means that we commit ourselves to keep creating community around us, that we keep creating, that we keep coming together with people who are also trying to go for refuge, who are trying to develop themselves. So Sangharakshita in his talk is saying, okay, so, there are people who have the same teacher, the same ideal as us, the Buddha, who go for refuge to the Buddha. There are people who are also trying to practice, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have a community or a Sangha. So that's another layer of communication that needs to happen there. So here we are with people, who've committed themselves to Buddhism, committed themselves to the path, But we actually do need to then also create Sangha around that. Yeah, that is not enough, as it were, to just have an ideal and a path, and then every now and again check in with each other how it's going. It's a third sort of level of depth or something which we need to bring about. So it's an additional element of communication between those who have committed themselves to that path. This is what we mean really by community. And going for refuge to the Sangha means keep trying to come together on that basis of shared ideals, of wanting to deepen our communication. So Sangharakshita calls us a vital mutual responsiveness on the basis of a common ideal and a common principle. So we're trying to not just talk to each other, but we're actually trying to completely resonate with one another. Yeah, vital mutual responsiveness, to be in complete sort of openness and responsiveness towards each other. That is what Sangha really means. You're completely yourself, you're a complete individual, but you are in deep communication with others. This is what we're trying to create. So those are the three things. Yeah, going for refuge. This is what it means. Yeah, going for refuge to the Buddha as an ideal, as a potential, to the Dharma, the practice, realizing that ideal, and the Sangha, actually creating and enjoying that community of those who are going this path as well. So I'm just going to finish with another quote from Sangharakshita on this talk, where he talks about conversion. And he says, he sort of summarizes in different words what I've just said, which I find quite helpful. So he says, conversion, again, he uses that word, conversion can come about in a gradual way, or there may be a moment of conversion. The experience may be sudden, even catastrophic, but then it dawns on you that actually your whole life, your whole being, has been building up to that moment over many years. And more specifically, it consists of three distinct processes of turning around. Firstly, from limited ideals to an absolute transcendental ideal. Secondly, from our little systems or habits or views that have their day, to a path based on unchanging spiritual principles and truths. And thirdly, from meaningless worldly contact to meaningful communication. And I'll leave it at that. Yeah, thank you very much.